All right. Well, welcome everyone. My name is Dawna Jones, and with me today is my co-host Emanuele Rapisarda, who is in Italy. We'll introduce each other shortly here, ourselves shortly, but the conversation is really about where to from here. It's an exciting time, I think, from a human evolution point of view. We have some incredible opportunities, and the people on this call are a massive part of it. It's just amazing and wonderful to see exactly who's showing up for this conversation, because I know each and every one of you have a role to play in this. So what I loved about the COVID, what I call the COVID interruption, is that it broke very deep entrenched patterns. It threw everything up for reflection. However, not everybody used it for reflection. And so I think there's an inherent opportunity in that. Naturally, it begs what next, but it really is another opening or a vehicle to expand consciousness, to expand mindset at every level. We're going to do three things in this conversation. One, we're going to look at what is the personal part of it, and that will be the primary focus for this conversation. There'll be other opportunities coming up for, roadmaps for business and so forth. But today it's the personal side of it with a systems view, which is the second side. So backing up, taking a really big picture look at what's the underlying systemic shifts, which helps make sense of a lot of things, I think. But it's one view, it's not the view, it is a view. So we'll see how that helps. And the final question is now what? What if, and possibility thinking, and what next? So by brief introduction, Emanuele, would you kindly do the honors of introducing yourself super briefly?
Yeah. Well, what I can say, two things basically. The first one is that I used to say that I am a evolution coach, and basically what I do with Cocoon Pro is to help individuals and organizations in expressing their full potential, respecting their identity, their context, and their trajectory as a, let's say, positive tension between the past and the future, what they are, what they can become. But at the same time, I'm also a songwriter, and I've been creating music for 15 years now. But only recently, let's say in a couple of years, I started to share my music with the world. So I'm very happy that today I can wear the hat of the singer in a webinar, which is very close to my job as evolution coach. And so to make these two contexts closer. So thank you, Dawna, and for inviting me, and thank you, everybody. I hope we can spend some good time together today.
15 years ago, I set out on a mission, and it was to reconnect decision-making back to embracing responsibility for human and planetary vitality. You could see things going down a lot sooner, but it all came together for me around early 2002 and 3 when I decided to change gears and really step up, because I've been doing a lot of facilitating of work that was about shifting performance. It was about shifting leadership stance. It was about shifting teams, but it wasn't about shifting a wider view for how we work with the world. And so I started off on that mission and ended up homeless for 9 years, which is really the training ground and for where we are now, where I am now, certainly. And it really is the plug-in for how to use crisis to expand your consciousness. So we'll share some of that, or I'll be sharing some of that as we go. What it really allows me to do, well, the combination, and this is true for everybody in this conversation, but you'll have specific things you bring to it, and what you do is you use these adverse conditions to really shift a wider view. So that's interdisciplinary across the board, and there's something quite beautiful about that. So that's by way of brief intro. The personal side of it, we're going to start with that because these adaptive skills that allow you to work in uncertainty are ones that blend the three elements of personal spirit. Personal spirit in this case meaning the fuel that drives performance from an organizational standpoint, but it's also the fuel that drives well-being. So if we can just have you chat, put in the chat pane briefly how you've experienced what this whole, what's the way you would describe the COVID interruption experience? And I'm going to have to ask you to look at the chat because I can't see it. I didn't count on that.
I will go with the first one, which says, first grief, then creativity and fear by Jay. But then also the sense of community and this sense of continuation from the economic crisis of 2007, 2008. Basically, many comments are about emotions, which are very different. Rowan wrote a full spectrum, actually, a full spectrum of emotions. So
beautiful. All right.
yeah.
Thank you.
Really a continuous flow of messages. So it's hard to read all of them. But,
no, that's wonderful. Thank you. I look forward to seeing them in the chat later. An important question, because really what we're shifting from is having security on the outside, because, you know, when COVID hits, the things that you count on, the routine patterns you count on, get shattered, and that sort of blanks you, you know, faces that uncertainty part. It shows up, and the ambiguity about it too. Nobody quite knowing what's going to happen next. So it's that what happens in these kinds of crises. You have the chance using your emotions, and I love that everyone's raised the emotional side of it. Using your emotions to shift your security from what's outside of you to what's inside of you. So I did a recent podcast with an entrepreneur who's had multiple crises, many of them quite dramatic. And this one has really minor in comparison to where he's been. The point is that you can use crisis for expansion, and that's expansion in terms of personal inner security. So that's quite beautiful. The personal spirit and energy then is a matter of being attentive and monitoring, you know, what are you taking in? And I say energy here because energy, your energetic well-being is what allows you to navigate successfully through these kinds of crises. And you have to pay attention to it because you have complete control over that part. You have complete control over how you look after your spirit. And I've been using Qigong and yoga, and, you know, because I'm not able to hike as much. So there's just different ways of doing it. But all of these touchstones here are ones that come up. What are you taking in terms of focus? Are you focusing on positive or negative? The brain loves the negative. It just tends to go rampant with that. I think there's like 5 times, or is it more than that, neural real estate devoted to negative over positive. And that's just a safety feature built into humans. Calming the nervous system using a variety of methods is the other part of it. Centering and grounding is something that nature does so incredibly beautifully, even if it's just a patch of grass. I happen to have a stream outside the back door, which most people don't, but I'm quite lucky. So I can just go and sit there for a bit. And then the other one that comes up that people struggle with is fear. And it's fear is one of those things you can either flow with it, or you can fight it, you can resist it, or you can go down to it. So there's a number of different uses of fear. The application of fear, or how I've found working with fear in my experience, is really about using as a teacher. So it's a bit of a guide in a sense, because you really have to separate what am I afraid of and what's going on here. So getting a hold and getting a grip on how you look after your personal spirit and energy is really the way you both avoid burnout, because I see that's in the news a fair bit, but it's also how you can recover from it. So from burnout or any kind of, anxiety or depression or mental illness. So this is really the zone for rising and expanding. It's kind of handy for that. Similarly, we have organizational spirit, and organizational spirit, Peter Senge, I think, called it spiritual intelligence, the capacity to take your whole self to work. That was in 1999. Organizations are having to pivot and toward things that make more sense in terms of creative energy. There's been a lot of constrained and confined energy tied up in rules, in command and control, in controlling performance. We are at a pivotal point. So for that, and these are some of the things that show up. My colleague and client in Sophia in Australia says measure what matters. It's really about measuring what you value. So, and there's a lot of metrics that measure the step-by-step as opposed to actually measuring anything significant. So this is a chance to, for organizations to repurpose themselves, redirect themselves, really assess what they've learned from this whole experience, and then invent something better. And it's about liberating people. We have a variety of ways in which that can happen. Again, that's something that probably I'll go into in a talk I'm doing for the London Financial Club. I'll give you, that information will be there later. So really what we're asking ourselves is, what can the COVID experience teach you about keeping the spirit strong in adverse conditions, and really just using, it's a very nuanced set of skills. What I really appreciated the other day was Dr. Andrew Huberman from Stanford came out with a neat thing called self-directed neuroplasticity, referring to the capacity of the brain to, adapt and rewire. And what the key to that is just focusing on learning from whatever it is you're experiencing, whether it's, and of course, part of that will be, there'll be some strain, there'll be some confusion, but then you rest and you rewire. And I can assure you there's plenty of strain and plenty of confusion from my experience, but it's also the zone where, as long as you focus on learning, not on the negative, but on the learning, if you just stay in that spot, what can I learn from this? How can I shift my perspective? How can I shift my stance to see things in a more calm way? Then your brain does the rewiring, and you basically shift up an order. So that means also some contextual awareness. So in summary, then, what we've got here in this kind of condition, in the COVID condition, is a chance to really use the crisis to achieve calm, no matter what the conditions. And it's also a training ground for complexity, and we'll get into that next. But right now, I'm going to turn it over to Emanuele.
Thanks, Dawna. Well, I would like to share one piece that I wrote, and actually, before doing that, a disclaimer, because speaking about COVID, I'm not in the house where I have my recording studio, so I have a very rough setup with just my laptop and earphones, and I hope this will allow us to enjoy this small experiment. But I want to share with you a song and sing it live as much as the technology wants to do it. That is about each of us, is about individuals. It is about our individual way of being in the world and how it is interwoven with all the people around us, all the things around us. This song, and actually also the other ones that I will share today, will be in Italian, but in this case, I decided to don't share any translation. I will try to share just some images that accompany the music, relying on the deeper level of feelings and spirit that we can share through the music. So I will try to share my screen now, and let's try this thing. So.
Ok, ci sono. Iniziamo. La telefonata di mio padre la mattina del mio compleanno, e le risate PlayStation, le botte, segreti, notti, promesse mai vane con mio fratello, e mia madre che mi dice che la cena è pronta e che non mangio le verdure da troppo tempo, e quelle volte che ti ho stretto per mano e passeggiando sottovoce ti ho detto ti amo, ti amo. Passano così le notti, i giorni, passano così veloci che non li ricordi. Dimentichi i sogni confusi tra quelli che fai mentre gli occhi rimangono aperti. Vivi attimi che bruciano la pelle, i calli sotto i piedi per la sabbia bollente. Il primo lavoro, paghette e risparmi per tornare indietro nel tempo e librarti. Ali grandi come gli anni, dove puoi restare a metà. Luci spente nelle notti, dove sembra tua la città. Vivi così gli attimi, gli istanti come lucidi diamanti che ti portano tra stelle e tra satelliti. Vividi gli istinti prima di venire uccisi dalle regole che gli uomini subiscono impotenti. La telefonata di mio padre la mattina del mio compleanno, e le risate PlayStation, le botte, segreti, notti, promesse mai vane con mio fratello, e mia madre che mi dice che la cena è pronta e che non mangio le verdure da troppo tempo, e quelle volte che ti ho stretto per mano e passeggiando sottovoce ti ho detto ti amo come quelle volte dove tutto è buio ma non perdo la rotta. Guardo il vento, ascolto le stelle, tocco le parole che il mare promette. Una mano mi spinge, sposta il timone nella direzione di ogni mio timore. Manca l'aria, nave in pezzi finché salti e ti sospendi. Ali grandi come gli anni, dove puoi restare a metà. Luci spente nelle notti, dove sembra tua la città.
I don't know how was the quality, but I hope this first piece was good enough for starting enjoying it.
Sorry, I muted myself. And then I got in there and I couldn't unmute myself. So I'm back right with you. Thank you, Emanuele. That was beautiful. I just, we had a great fun planning this. So I hope you enjoyed it as much. We certainly had fun at the beginning. So I hope you enjoyed this as much as we did. Okay, here we go. So now the next part of the conversation has to do with complex systems. And for me, I mean, I was lucky enough to grow up in the bush. When I was scared, I'd hide there. And I was scared quite a bit, so I would hide quite a lot in the bush. And I would learn about the interrelationships, not by anybody teaching me, but just by watching and seeing how things happened and what kinds of animals showed up and how they related to one another. And just the complexities were brilliant. And it really taught me a huge amount about how life worked. Somewhere along the line, we got disconnected from all of that. And the decisions got broken. We were no longer respecting all of the things that came into to life. And so that's where why I started to shift my role in the world. And really largely because as a dominant species on this planet, we have a significant responsibility. And I didn't feel, and still don't feel, that we're stepping up to that. So this is a chance for us to do so. And I'm quite excited about that. And I've been waiting for it for a long time. This little microscopic virus has managed to do what very few things could ever do. It managed to stop human activity, bring it to a grinding halt. It also succeeded in having us stop fighting for a bit. The United Nations director asked for a ceasefire and stop our fighting for a bit, stop fighting with ourselves, which was pretty dramatic. Not everybody listened to it, but nevertheless, it was at least a start that we could focus our attention on being better at surviving on this beautiful planet that we have. So it is being a chance then to see reality from a wider lens and to really rethink who we are. I think one of Marcia's and my colleagues put it this way: it's like we've been sent to our room to think about what we've done. I think that's a really great metaphor. From a systems point of view, and then here what I want to do is step way back, because there is something going on that when I first started to have this conversation with Ervin Laszlo, it was several years ago, we wrote an article and it made sense. And I hope it helps make sense to you as well. I'm just going to move this picture out of the way. So basically we stand at the intersection where departmentalizing things it's collapsing under the weight. I mean, one of the things we did was we made things the complexity of nature, the complexity of interrelationships, we simplified it, oversimplified it by simply departmentalizing everything and designing our institutions on linear thinking, on causal thinking, forgetting about those interrelationships. And that's where business has caught itself up. That's where you watch educational is in the step of reforming the healthcare system. Name the institution. They were all born on institutional. They were all designed using institutional thinking. So now we're at this intersection where those departments are starting to break down under the weight of complexity. Anything that is failing to adapt is becoming increasingly fragile, including traditional decision-making approaches. And so behind all this is a fundamental system-level transformation. And the way Ervin Laszlo talks about it, and the systems theorist, is it's a split in the evolutionary trajectory. So he says there are laws of complexity, including laws of the evolution of complexity, that apply to all systems. It's a non-linear system level transformation called bifurcation is one such law. So it's a change, a radical change in the evolutionary trajectory of the system. It will evolve along it can be measured. It'll evolve linearly along certain lines, but there'll be a point where linear evolution is no longer possible. It is the point where there's a sharp alternative between collapse or transform, and it includes in the evolutionary trajectory of all systems. It smells the end of some and the transformation of the others, and the question is, what will we choose? It is not too late. We are exactly at the point where we can decide which one we choose to realize, but it's up to us. And of course, because we've got this group on the call, I know that we're well equipped. Oh, right, there we go. So nature evolves using radical means. It's non-linear, same as what we're going on through right now, this big shift. It uses crisis or disruption. It is radical, it's rapid, and it's interconnected. We had a ship from the Japanese tsunami show up on the offshore of Tofino on the west coast of Canada. So things that you don't think will happen do happen. It's all of these things show up in every order. So, but nature always shifts to a higher order. And it's the same reason why a single cell creature, a single cell organism has evolved into the 50 trillion cells that make up your human body and keep you well. Okay, what? Oh, okay, fine. So, sorry, I'm trying, it wasn't working like it was, it's now changed. The other thing that COVID has given a chance to do is just observe the impact of human impact on the planet and again, the system side of it. So it's revealing to all of a sudden realize that this is, we can't deny it anymore, it's there. So. Jeffrey Shaman, who studies climate and change at the Columbia University's International Research Institute for Climate and Society, said that both climate change and coronavirus as disruptors have lots of downstream consequences. With climate change, it's not just the climate system, it's human health, it's food security, agriculture security, energy security, economic stability and governance. It's ripple effects that affect all components of society in a slow way that are hard to quantify. So what the coronavirus has really done is take the slow and imperceptible into the immediate and obvious. And that is a gift in itself, because now we can see things that we wouldn't otherwise have been able to see. These little ants are a good indication. Harvard's ant specialist, E.O. Wilson, suggests that although human extinction would result in the disappearance of a few handful of species, parasites, dependent upon our armpits, our groin, or our insides, the rest of nature would rebound in abundance, while the disappearance of ants would lead to a total ecological collapse. We've lost about 40% of our insect diversity at this point, so we're starting to head down that path, and I think we have an opportunity to work with that differently. So human activity has a massive impact on all living creatures. The question I have that closes off the systems approach is, the systems conversation is, how can we use this interruption to regenerate social and economic health?
Yeah, I would follow this direction of your words, Dawna, and go also with the music one level up. So from the individual level to the whole humankind as a unique organism that breathes and lives in harmony with the planet and with the different contexts in which we interact as humankind. So the title of this second song is Piccoli archi di cerchi più grandi, which is the Italian translation of Small Arcs of Larger Circles. This is the title of a beautiful book by Nora Bateson. This book has been suggested to me by my mentor and close friend. And it inspired me while I was in the Amazon forest. It was really a moment for me of awakening, I can say, reading those words in that context. And in this case, you can read the text on the screen. So I put there the translation. You can read it while I present the song. And it is basically a continuous metaphor of who we are and who we can be as humankind in this planet, so in harmony with this planet. I will share my screen as I did before, and I will start.
Siamo sassolini di una cattedrale enorme, siamo gli embrioni di un bambino in fasce, siamo calamita tratte dai poli terrestri, siamo le lacrime dopo i disastri, l'erba di un prato, il rumore di un treno, l'eco di un monte, la voce di un cieco, l'inchiostro sui libri, vernice sul muro. Noi siamo l'acqua che corro del ferro, siamo l'uva per il vino quando viene estate, siamo gocce spaventate per il temporale, siamo ruota a terra di una bici in garage, siamo il rossore su guance col blush, siamo la tempera per una tela, siamo una stretta di mano in trincea, siamo una corda per una chitarra, siamo le note che questa regala. Noi senza confini, noi liberi di cambiare forme, siamo come liquidi, noi fatti di vertigini, piccoli archi, cerchi più grandi. Siamo le foglie di un albero immenso, siamo le nuvole in un cielo terzo, noi come lupi nel parco di Yellowstone cambiamo i fiumi ma senza saperlo, siamo gli allievi di un grande maestro, siamo le travi incastrate di un tetto, siamo la mano che preme il grilletto, ma siamo anche il Kevlar dentro al giubbotto, siamo strade di paese con le buche addosso, siamo scarpe di stranieri solo di passaggio, siamo libri letti da milioni di persone ma scritti alla fine da un solo autore, siamo la corrente che passa in un cavo, siamo i cerchi di un sasso in un lago, siamo i messaggi mandati di notte alle persone sbagliate e mai perse. Noi senza confini, noi liberi di cambiare forme, siamo come liquidi, noi fatti di vertigini, piccoli archi, cerchi più grandi. Espressione di un solo volere, siamo in coerenza tra gesti e parole, siamo un cratere di lava e la neve, noi siamo il diavolo e gli angeli insieme, siamo un progetto fallito e per questo siamo perfetti per essere giusti, solo perdendo chi siamo sapremo che noi siamo il tutto. Noi senza confini, noi liberi di cambiare forme, siamo come liquidi, noi fatti di vertigini, piccoli archi, cerchi più grandi. Piccoli archi, cerchi più grandi.
A little bit more energetic than the previous one, but this is how I feel the humankind to be, really a flow of energy. So I hope you enjoyed it.
Thank you. Thank you. I got kicked out, so I hope nobody else did. And thank you, Francesco, because if you hadn't given me the message, the little thing, I would not have known how to sign back into the webinar. So thank you. And that was brilliant. I really appreciated that. All right. So in this last stage of the conversation, before we open it up for wider reflection and your feedback and some dialogue, the real question here is what if, and again, we're grounding this conversation today in personal. So what if the COVID-19 interruption was here to reimagine new possibilities, to really reflect, reset, and reinvent, and to co-design our future collectively? It's an open opportunity, and Buckminster Fuller used to say, and this is my motto when working with organizations, that we never change things by running into the old. We change them by designing the new and having it run as a parallel and an alternative. And I think we're starting to see that in a lot of different places politically. We're seeing it elsewhere. And certainly it's happening in business with self-management, with biomimicry management in larger companies. Just a lot of really innovative approaches are coming up, which is wonderful. All of it boils down to both cooperation and co-creation across networks. Networks run companies. I think the work done by Hewlett-Packard in 2005 was social biology work, where they mapped that the majority of what happened in the company in terms of goal achievement, big goal achievement, the things that people cared about, happened about well outside of the boundaries of the organization. It was people using their community to get things done. One of the neat things about networks is and complexity as well, is that nonlinear systems run on social and emotional information, and they send it far faster than anything else does. It's roughly 268 feet per second or 82 meters a second for social emotional information to zip through culture or to zip through society. And you can see that every time you turn on the news, and whatever it is you pick up, that's what you get. So next to that, texting or Slack seems pretty pedantic. So this is the chance for us to nail and look at how we design things within our own lives and how we design things within the world that respect and reflect the principles of complex nonlinear systems. So I'm gonna now just go to you, and I think I'm gonna need your help again. So I'm now gonna go to you because today we're having a conversation about personal vision and your expression. Business is obviously a part of that focus because each of you are also entrepreneurs or in business or in companies, whichever way. We've had a conversation going right now on how a business can drive a nation and restart a nation's economy. So whatever it is, it's always driven from you. It's always driven from the person. So just wanted to ask you, because we've got multiple doorways here, what do you see as possible here? What would be a possible expression for you? And just if you could put that in the chat pane, what would you believe you would like to see emerge out of this?
I can read the comments if you agree. So from Annie, I see business leaders not act in alignment with their state values toward employees. I'm thinking about system thinking can be a wedge. And Christian says, I'm wishing for a massive wave of calm. So calm, success through cooperation, Bob. Deborah says, doing away with artificial borders between people, organizations, cultures, and communities. Acceptance of the wholeness of people and giving them full autonomy, giving meaning and purpose at work. This is Brooke. Jean-Marie says, people first, profits second. I think I lost some comments before because they continue to arrive. Thomas says, human business being established as the new global norm. Shona says, humanity returns to the workplace. Okay, there are other like 10 or 15 comments. It's incredible. I cannot read all of them in real time. I will read just this from Francesco, who says, more solidarity, the certainty now that we are all connected with steer the waters in the direction of common benefits. Rethink the concept of benefits and profits for the human organizations. So really a lot of different perspective, but I think also aligned with this feeling. Rohan says, a new vigor toward learning again. Paul, value interactions and connections with others, respect for the environment, and understanding and respect for our personal needs. Iñaki says, rethink the concept of benefits and profits. Oh yes, I already read it. It's incredible. Kathleen, creating greater community and more collaboration among all the generations, a more inclusive, human, and sustainable future for all. J, see COVID as a reminder, a wake call to consciousness and generativity, applying the human network to co-create our future and not rely on corrupt powers. There is another one here up. Flexibility to account for full humanness. Emmett's work, practically speaking, work from home, caring for kids, caring for self, flexibility of working hours. Really a lot. There are other two new comments, one from Dan. I think it's an answer to someone else. I will just read the comments, which says, Thomas Hopper Dixon uses the term voluntary downgrading. You either voluntarily downgrade to live within systemic or planetary boundaries, or nature downgrades for you, resulting in breakdown or collapse. The virus is the straw that could trigger a multi-layer cascade system failure, as a focus on privatization, austerity, and efficiency has dismantled resiliency at all layers of the system, from the personal to the global. And Letizia, I think this is the last one, says, work conceived as the way through which humans express their creativity for the benefit of themselves and the whole. Everything around work, so built around that purpose. I hope I didn't skip anyone. Sorry if I did.
It's okay, we can also pick it up in the end in the conversations. Thank you. Thank you very much. So essentially, what I hope is that we've received enough humility from this little microscopic thing to rethink our place in the world and how we move forward with it. We have the opportunity to do everything that you have put in that chat pane and a lot more. We've got an awful lot of potential that we haven't really tapped into. And that's what we have that actually, in terms of biology, it only gets released when you're faced with, adversity. That's when that comes out. I put diversity on this particular slide as well for a reason, because we are having an extreme loss of biodiversity, which completely impacts our planetary resilience and also our own resilience as a species. It also is relevant in workplace decision-making, where when you have all the pixels, what I call all the pixels of the picture are put to, say that fast, all the pixels in the picture are put together, you have a better platform for decision-making, because now instead of making assumptions about what's going on, you actually can see what's going on. So I think there's something beautiful about that. Iman, do you want to, or do you want to do this at the very end?
As you wish, as you wish.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it at the very end, just to close off. So we'll have some conversation, and then that would be nice. I think that'd be nice. So the question for you is, and this is one to leave you with, is what can you imagine for you in your world? And again, keep grounding it back into yourself, your heart's desires. This time is about aligning, being absolutely in alignment with what your heart desires. We can use our mind, our will to override a lot of things, including what our heart desires, and this is not a time for that. Business does that all the time. This is a chance to rethink that, and I think, as Thomas said earlier, it's really about bringing the humanity back into business. So, which is where the adaptive responsiveness sits and lies. We have a quick ask. First of all, I want to thank Jay for helping, and my daughter as well, Lindsay Henwood, for helping me out and putting all this together, and giving Emanuele and I feedback as we were working with this grand experiment. But also a quick ask is, if anybody has a chance to bring us one step closer to a decision-making, that is how that works. And if this conversation today, as we finish it, or as we go through, is the value, please share the replay when it comes out. And of course, collaborate. There's some brilliant people on this conversation in this webinar that are really wonderful people to collaborate with. So this is how you find us. And do you want to say anything, Emanuele? Do you want to add anything to this before we open it up for conversation?
Not really. Not really. I'm fully in the spirit of this continuous conversation that is happening in the chat and connecting it to what we are trying to share. So nothing to add in this moment on top of what what is happening. So
okay, beautiful, thank you. So I think what we're doing now is we're intentionally getting to reinvent relationships with each other and with the wider ecosystems in business and of course in our lives as well. I'll put this on at the end, and so I'm just going to stop sharing right now so we can, because there's a bunch of things coming up. And let's just get out of this and let's go to you in the chat pane and conversations. Feedback.
Whenever I hear, humanity back into business, and everything inside of me obviously screams, yay, that's a wonderful idea. But I mean, let's not kid ourselves. I mean, I can sense, like in Germany already, the old system is attempting to claw back after COVID-19. And I think it's just going to require an immense amount of energy of all of us to stop that old regime from taking over again. I don't see that we can fully stop them, but I feel that's what I meant by a wave of calm, that I'm hoping that we can muster up enough energy out of all of us to stop this insanity that hasn't worked really since complexity has started striking about 20 years ago from reoccurring. So I'm just hoping that we can connect really strongly all together to shape this world into what we think it can be. And it's going to be a trace of something like a couple of decades. But this is a wonderful moment. And, I'm just also stricken with fear that COVID hasn't been deep enough as a disruption for systems to seriously start thinking and feeling. So I'm hoping that we can unite and just by virtue of calm and peace, offer an antipode to the insanity that is attempted to claw back.
Thanks, Christian. I agree with you. We that's actually one of the reasons why we started having conversations in Italy about looking at working with a nation state reboot from an economic point of view, using business, using this approach. So obviously step one is reflect and learn. That is the core part of it. And how you get executives to do that, there's a variety of different initiatives going on here. I don't know if Michael Grove is on here, but there's something going on in the United States towards that. Anybody else? No. I mean, there's a number of ways of approaching this. But the action is key. You're absolutely right, Christian. It's not going to happen by itself. It's going to take initiative.
Well, I think that one of the initiatives we can take is like in our immediate environment. Sometimes we think, okay, it has to come from the top and trickle down. This is kind of the old way of thinking. I mean, when we, for example, work in projects, we work in teams, I mean, we can start right there. I mean, we don't have to wait for somebody else to do it. It can be up to us to take the lead and see what's possible, what we can shape, and we go from there. Maybe this way we can attract other people and they will ask, but it's up to us. If we just wait, if we're passive, no. I mean, for those of us who have recognized that the old system is basically dead or should not be continued as this destructive system, and we can co-create something together. Okay, then there is no excuse. We just take the first initiative wherever we are. It could be in family, could be with friends, can be at work, in small teams and projects, what have you, and go from there. Just waiting for the top, it may, given the old incentive systems, it's very difficult, but we can shape and can influence and affect our immediate environment.
Yeah, thank you, Thomas. In fact, the executive, I didn't show this slide because it would have made it longer than it was, but the executive level decision-making are absolutely not equipped to deal with complex issues. That's the research work that's coming out. So that much we know. That means the initiative on everyone's part is critical. Anything else? Anybody else want to pop up something?
I was saying, thinking about change, it's just really important that the old gets included with the new. If you want to, if we talk about killing the old, that causes a lot of fight, and including the old makes it can make things go a lot smoother.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think it's a matter of killing the old. That's sort of like throwing the baby out in the bathwater and the bathtub as well. I think it's more about working with this pause, actually setting it as a pause. And Christian, your point's well taken, because what they want to do is there's fear running the decision to get the economies back online. That's that fear. They're not working with the fear. They're running away. They're not actually working with it. So when you work with it, you can say, okay, what has this, what has this situation taught us? What questions does it? It's a real reflection and exploration and discovery. Maybe this is a time to talk about requisite agility. Where are you, Kashmir? Do you want to pop up and say something about that work? Not that this is a solution to what you're saying, Bill, but it is also, it's an aspect or some more work done on that.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for setting this up today. It's been fabulous hearing everybody's comments. And I think part of the challenge is, where do we begin? And so what I'm finding is that there is so much that we can do, but actually so much that we're doing is numbing the pain. And the big trauma that I'm experiencing everywhere I'm going, people I'm coaching, people I'm working with, is we're coming out of this not just with COVID, we're coming out of this with trauma of people using alcohol and violence and drugs and all kinds of things to numb the pain. So we're going to have a population that's coming out of a post-traumatic stress disorder, but with addictions. And I think governments and everybody else are seeing this, but nobody knows how to deal with it. So when we come through this numbing of the trauma, we've got to be there for each other as well as for ourselves. So part of the challenge is actually seeing the bigger picture, is the numbing that's happening, people using media. And if you've seen the statistics, 30 to 40% most countries, nearly every country, there's been an increase in domestic violence. Empty hotels are being filled with safe spaces for women and children. There's a whole set of toxins surfacing. And I think, to me, that's the question. Do we now, those things aren't brought about by COVID. They were there before. So my view is that COVID is not going to change us. It's going to accelerate what we've always been. It's going to surface what's already there. The question is whether we take the opportunity to take care of those things or not. And that's all I can think of right now. There's an opportunity for us to look hard at the trauma and pain that's been buried for so long and deal with it. And I think some people will deal with it and others will not.
I think I can just, in France, people can hear me? Yeah. We deconfined 2 weeks ago, so we were allowed out. And I felt it was a real, I was actually quite ashamed. It was a real indictment, I thought, on society. There were queues and queues of people in front of shops. And do you know which shops? To buy fashion clothes. And they interviewed people, and there were people saying, I've been confined, I haven't been able to buy anything, and I want to buy something. And the person was saying, what is it you want to buy? Anything, I want to buy something. And I'm thinking, wow, people, just 2 months, and suddenly you have this craving to buy things. And I felt that a real indictment on our society.
It's absolutely true. I mean, I've got lots of clients who, they've told me they're just buying things on Amazon and returning them. I said, well, why? And it's exactly that. Somebody just mentioned addiction. It's a way of numbing the pain. And if I can buy something, I've got, it's a way of just avoiding what's right in front of us, and then hanging on to where we've been.
Yes, the need to consume. I have to consume. If I can't consume, then I'm not part of society. I have to consume. I have to buy things. Yeah.
Wow. So what that speaks to is redefining meaning a fair bit. And I mean, again, the how part of this is quite, how can I say, it is emotional social, and it's ecosystem related. So, we might, and I'm going to not ask anybody now, but I'm going to suggest that what we do is reflect a bit on both the conversation and the state we're in, and just see if there's a way we can all come together to help people move forward. I've been putting on my podcasts ways for people to stay calm in this. There's a conversation with John O'Grady this would relate, the United States relate well to the military. So, so there's a conversation with Colonel John O'Grady on how the military prepare for these kinds of interruptions and what are the skills and tools for that. box breathing. There's a whole set of breathing techniques. In fact, that's a program I'm putting together, I think, for the Requisite Agility conference coming up. But all to say that there's a lot of things that can be done right now. Is there a role that I can play to help support you in moving forward, to support us in doing that? I'd like you to give that some thought and then message me in the afterward. I know Brooke's been putting a lot of great comments in the chat on what else is going on out there. There's some outstanding work happening. There's some companies that have done some amazing things with COVID. And actually the speed with which even government has responded has been mind-blowing. Instead of, I think the comment made at the Barrett Value Center presentation of the research yesterday was the 5 to 7 years of transformation took place in 5 to 7 weeks. So it's just radically shows what we're capable of when pushed. So I'm going to leave that, like you to do, leave that with you. And if I can go back to Emanuela, and first of all, thank you all for your contributions. And if I can go back to you to close off with a song, I would appreciate it. Is that everyone okay with that? Okay.
Sure.
Go for it.
Okay.
Now
So,
I need to do nothing.
No, yeah, I think
Yes.
I can share the screen. So in this case, this last song is about what we talked in the last 10 or 15 minutes. It's about doing something, or what we can do or not do consciously for this transition. And when I wrote this song, it was in 2019, so way before the COVID situation. And it is about the happiness that comes from doing. The bridge of the song says, what a pleasure to do this life, what a pleasure to do. Because I believe it's important to feel, to make sense, to reflect, to breathe. But at the same time, I believe that happiness and beautiful things comes from doing, for really walk in our path, for really being there. And I mean, we as individuals, organizations, so humankind at large. So this is about possibilities. And I will now share the screen with just a few keywords appearing on top.
Ma che goduria fare questa vita qua, ma che goduria fare. Ma che goduria fare questa vita qua, ma che goduria fare. Ma che goduria fare questa vita qua, con lo sguardo lontano, con i tamburi e il baccano, con le campane al mattino, la musica del vicino che fa tremare i bicchieri, che fa incazzare, ma sono io. Canto così, sì, come un NCC, abbandono ogni speranza che mi freni. Di nuovo si rinnovi giudizi e ballando abbandono chi non sta battendo i piedi. Goduria che dura finché qualcuno si ostina a baciarsi sotto la luna, toccare sotto la vita. Goduria frutta matura come le MILF, mama I love fruits. È un gatto sui social che fa milioni di views, è un camionista incazzato che però ascolta Chopin, è un capitano di nave che sbaglia e scopre l'America, e te che salti la scuola e con questo scopri la vita. Ma che goduria fare questa vita qua, ma che goduria fare. Ma che goduria fare questa vita qua, ma che goduria fare. Ma che goduria fare questa vita qua, ma che goduria fare. Ma che goduria fare questa vita qua, ma che goduria fare. Ma che goduria quando sali su un treno, nuoti nel Mediterraneo, giochi a backgammon in mano, un bicchiere, dire un cubano, il ferragosto, il lavoro, la notte senza dormire, i concerti e le ballerine, il riso delle bambine che si rincorrono e chi le vuole fermare, le nonne con le paghette e i gelati, le amicizie d'estate, i mal di pancia d'amore, il ritmo di una canzone che cambia flow. Il profumo del caffè, chi non lo beve, la conquista della luna, e chi non crede, il visualizzato nelle storie giuste, il viso arrossato per lei quando ride. Ma che goduria fare questa vita qua, ma che goduria fare. Ma che goduria fare questa vita qua, ma che goduria fare. Ma che goduria fare questa vita qua, ma che goduria fare. Ma che goduria fare questa vita qua, ma che goduria fare.
Thank you very much. That was heartwarming. The entire session was. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I'm glad. Anybody else want to make a closing comment? You can reach out to us on well, variety of different media, but LinkedIn, all the usual stuff. I can follow up in an email with that. And if anybody'd like research information, I can send that to the stuff on any aspect of it. Happy to send that along. And also please message me on any thoughts you have on how I can support or how we can support or how we can support each other in moving things forward and taking the initiative and not waiting, because the leadership at the executive level is simply not ready for that. Very, very few of them will be. The ones that are the ones that pivoted quickly, and the ones that actually recognized that this was a time for a pause, and they stepped back, regrouped, and then moved. Those are the ones that you know are going to come out of this very well. So we're looking for the ones that are in that hesitation mode, in the question, and can move from there. So, and I mean by that, all of us. It's not just, I mean, each of you in your own work. It's everyone here.
What could be good maybe in a few, I don't know which version of Zoom you're using, but maybe what be good in a future version is have some breakout groups where we could be in maybe 5 or 6 people, so it would be a bit easier to exchange some ideas, and then maybe come back into the like we were doing a normal seminar. Sure,
absolutely. I can do that. And also, by the way, Barrett Value Center are running a co-creation event. If in the next up set, I'm just going to share my screen to share that. But in the next up screen, they I didn't put that one on there, but they are running a. I'm going to do this again. They are running an event that I think comes somewhere between June 1st and June 5th and 6th. I'll find more details on that. But yes, Bob, I'm happy to do that. And I'd love it. If it's all right with everybody, I'll just message you and set up another time for another conversation. And if there's anybody that wants to collaborate with me on that, please step forward. Emanuele, I really want to appreciate you for doing this, for being willing to share your music. And we did debate about whether he did it live or whether he did the pre-recorded, and we thought live might be kind of a more real experience for everyone. But we'll also look at maybe incorporating the other side of it into the actual recording. We'll see, we'll figure this out. 3 things are coming up. June 1st, the Financial Services Club for YZen, or Zen, I never know how to say this. This is Michael Manelli out of London, and I interviewed him in 2014 when he wrote a book called Wicked Problems and the Price of Fish. Michael's one of the top 10 financial innovators in the distributed ledgers, cryptocurrency space. He's an incredible financial innovator. So we're having a conversation, and that one's going to be about putting crisis to use from a business point of view. Then, do you want to speak to Ohana?
Yeah, well, briefly, it is a meeting that we organize every year. This time, for the first time, it will be remote, but we are taking the full depth experience, including the party on Saturday evening, the 6th. So the second day evening, we usually have a party with live music. I'm not the artist in this case. We have another singer, which will have a live concert from home, shared dinner, cooking experience from remote, and so on. So it's a moment to stay together, conversating about the future of work and the evolution of the world of work during the day, and staying together also during the evening. So it's a space that we are offering to the whole community.
And June 18th to July 7th, we have Requisite Agility Conference, and that's where I'll be doing the deep dive into how 9 years of homelessness helps you stay calm out of crisis, and just what it teaches you from an expanded consciousness point of view. That's Kashmir is part of that organizing team, along with Amir. No, well, anyway, it's a whole great team. So give that some thought coming up. And thank you. Thank you all very, very much for coming, for being a part of this, for participating, for contributing. Thank you.
Thanks, Dawna.
Stay tuned.
Thanks, Dawna.
I'll get something out to you soon. Thank you.
Bye.
See ya.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.
See you. Bye-bye. Thank you very much.